Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we will be learning how to create your own infinite carousel machine to help you generate unlimited carousel posts for your social media based on any news articles online. So just to show you how it works, at the end of the video, you will be able to convert something like this, the latest article or post, into a series of carousel posts that you can post onto your social media at ease automatically. You can have it in different styles, like this one I've just done in comic book style, sharing about the news in an interesting and fun manner in the template that I have created for my automation. Alright, so how does this automation works, right? There are three main parts to it. The first thing we're going to learn how to do is to scrape the internet for the latest articles using RSS feed and create a summary of that and consolidate them in our Airtable. Following that, once we're able to scrape the latest news and article in our niche, we'll then create a fully automated system that converts it all the way from an article into a series of carousel posts. This is done by our amazing automation on Make, as well as our beautiful automation using Airtable. You can see over here, we'll learn how to create a full automation system over here. Once that is done, and once we have our carousel posts, we can then very simply check them in our Airtable. And if we like these scenes as well as the images that we have created, we can then approve them and create a final carousel post using an app called Placid. Right, at Placid, we will create our own template, and as you can see over here, this is a simple template that I've created for the carousel posts that I like, but you can create in any format that you want, and we will then be able to finally automate them in our final make automation and upload them into our Google Drive for the final result, and from here we can post them all onto our social media platform at ease. Alright, so before we get started, if you want direct access to all my templates and resources, you can check that out in the link in the description below and use them to follow along to make this process easier for you. And without further ado, let's get right into the building. Okay, and now getting into the building, the first thing we want to build is our Airtable. So if you haven't done so, go and create an Airtable account and create a new base, and I'll call this Infinite Carousel Generator. Alright, once this is done, I'm going to create my very first table, which is the Stories table. This table is basically the overview of all the different news posts and stories that we will use in our carousel generation. Right, so alright, the first thing we're going to do is to delete these two fields. We don't need this, so let's delete this. Okay, and we're going to start off with the very first field. We're going to call this Story ID. We're going to create a new field and we're going to name this Scenes, and we're going to link this to a new table called Scenes. And this is where we're going to keep all our scenes later on. And you can see over here, it has created a new table for us. Amazing. Moving back to stories, we're going to create another field. This time we're going to call it Story Types. And similarly, we're going to link it to another record, create a new table, Story Types, and create field. Okay, take a look over here. We do have a new field as well. So that's awesome. And now moving back to stories, we're just going to shift this over here. Okay, now we're going to go into the scenes view once again and complete this. We're just going to change this to story, and we're going to turn off allow linking to multiple records and click save and confirm change. We're going to add another field beside it. We're just going to call it scene, and we're going to have it as a long text, right? This is where we're going to have the scene for each carousel created later on. Next one we're going to have is the image prompt, and this is where we're going to have our image prompt later to generate our images for our carousel. So keep it as a long text as well, and click enter and click create field. Awesome. Alright, the next thing we want to create is to create an image list for us to consolidate all our images. We're going to add another field once again. We're going to link to another record, and we're going to create a new table. We're going to call this image list, and the name of the table image list, and create field. Alright, we can keep it as that for now, and we can shift this over to beside scenes, and we're going to add in a couple more fields before we move on to these story types. Okay, we're going to jump quickly to the image list table. From here, we're going to create a new field, and we're going to call it an attachment field, and we're going to call this image. Alright, we're going to change the name to job ID, and we're going to keep the scenes as scene, and we're going to turn off allow linking to multiple records. So what this does is that it creates a table for us to later see all the different scene and images created for each job ID. Okay, once this is done, we're going to go back to scenes and complete the table. Now we're going to click this arrow below, and we're going to add a lookup field, and we're going to add in image, right? So now you can find the image from images. We're just going to rename this to image so it's easier for us to see, and save. Alright. Okay, and now a couple more fields to add in to our scenes. The next one we're going to create is a status view. We're going to create a single select, and we're going to call this status. We're going to add in the option number 1, rejected. The second one is approved. And we're going to change the colors to green, and this to red. This for us to very easily later on approve the scenes for it to then be converted into a carousel for our automation. Alright, and just to have two last fields, we have to create one called created time. Okay, we're going to search for created time and click OK. And we're going to have one more, which is last modified time. This is important for the automation to be able to work later on. We're going to add in a record ID as well. So we're going to create a formula this time, okay? And we're going to generate a formula. You can use the AI to help us, so that's very useful. So you can search for a record ID, click generate, and here we have it. We do have a formula for us to create a record ID, and that's it. That's all we have for the scenes. And so next up, we're going to go into the story types. So over here at story type, what we essentially want to create is something like this, where we do have a couple of different story type prompts that we can use for our automation, right? For example, if let's say we want the carousel post to be in a comic news style, we will be able to directly use the prompts that we have created over here for comic news, as well as the scene prompts to create the images in that specific style. So think of this as a list of different prompts that we can send over to GPT to generate different types of images and different types of scenes without us having to constantly type over and over again. Right, so back to our table, what we are going to do is to change the name of this first view to story types. We're going to hide this view. We're going to add in a new long text view, and we're going to call this story prompt text. Okay, basically over here, this is where we're going to have our story prompts to be able to generate stories from the articles that will be converted into our carousel posts later on. And along the way, we'll see how it works. The next thing we're going to add in is the scenes prompt, and we're going to choose long text. And what essentially is going to be here is the prompts create both the text in the scenes as well as the image prompt to generate what's required in each post of the carousel. So I already have created a prompt, so I'm just going to paste over my prompts and my story types. But similarly, you do get them from the resources in the link in the description below. Alright, so we're just going to paste them over. Okay, and we're just going to expand this to extra tall so we can take a look at the different story types that we have created. Expand this. Alright, and beautiful. Okay, you can see over here I've created 5 simple examples, starting with comic news, photorealistic news, hyper-realistic futuristic news, minimalist style news, vintage newspaper news. These are just 5 different styles in these examples to create different carousel post styles that I would like. You can definitely create way more styles using this template, but to keep it simple, we're just going to dive into the comic style today, and I'm going to explain to you how it works. Right, if you take a look at the story prompt itself, I've given it a specific story prompt text. I've given it a specific role, right, telling it that it's a professional news reporter tasked to summarize the article into a short factual review with the information ready to be used to create engaging and informative carousel posts, right? And I gave it a task, right? When reading the article provided, I want it to structure a summary with 5 different pointers such as headline, intro, importance, key facts, and call to actions. And I think these 5 different points would be super useful for us to create a 5 to 6 images carousel post to explain what the article is about, interestingly. Right, I give it specifics, but like keeping the total summary to a maximum of 200 words, right, using clear and engaging languages, and I give it an example as well. So what this example does is that it allows the AI to understand what's the format that we want the post to look like. Right, for example, you can see there is the headline example, there's the intro over here, the importance, the key facts, as well as the call to action. Right, essentially, this will later allow me to have GPT create a story post in the specific format that I love. Now, moving to the scenes prompt, you can see I've told it to generate AI image generated prompts based on a given story, which will be the story that's created by the AI previously, right? Transforming each sentence into something detailed, suitable for creating vivid, dynamic comic books illustrations, right? So this is very unique and specific to the comic news. For the rest, you can see over here, it's about creating high resolution, photorealistic images, and so on and so forth. Now, one important thing about this specific prompt is the output format. I ask you to provide the results as a JSON object containing an array called pairs, and each object within a pair should have an original, which is the original sentence for the story, and the AI image prompt, which is the detailed AI image generated prompts starting with a specific declaration. Why is this important, right? In our carousel post, we do have the images as well as the text, and we want to generate them side by side and automate them fully. So essentially, by creating the prompts in the JSON format, I will be able to later on use my make automation to create all of them together and then be able to generate the different scenes and images in pairs so that we can organize and automate them in a quick and easy manner. I also give it some other guidelines for the scenes and the prompts and different details to help us make the image prompt better as well. So you can read up on these and adjust accordingly as well. Alright, and so once this is done, we're just going to complete the rest of our table. We're going to go back to stories now and we're going to add in a couple more views, right? The first thing we're going to add in is to add a lookup view from the story types, and we're going to add in the story type, the story prompt text, and the scene prompt. Okay, and from here we're just going to change and edit it. Remove this, save, remove this, save, remove this, and save. Okay, once this is done, we're just going to change the status into a checkbox. We're going to call this ready, and we're going to click save. This for us to later on use to kickstart the automation. Similarly, we're going to add in a couple more views like the last modified time. modified, and we're gonna have the created time as well, and we're gonna shift this over, and we're gonna have a record ID as well. So search for record ID, find a field type formula, and we're gonna generate formula for record ID, and here we have it. We're gonna create field, and that's all we need. Okay, and the next thing we want to do is to organize them. We're gonna create a new one called all data, create new view, and this is the one that's gonna have every single data all the way. And for our very first grid view, we're gonna change the name. We're gonna call this all stories, and we're just gonna hide a couple of fields. So we're gonna hide story types, story prompt text, scene prompt, and record ID, and scenes, and that's it. And as you can see over here, it's a lot cleaner for us to just see the story ID, the story types. Okay, and over here we need to add in another two fields. So we add in to the right. The first one is article summary, long text, create field. This is the summary of the article that we will create with ChatGPT later on. And we're going to insert right one more time. We're going to add in the story as well. And this is what we're going to be using for the prompt creation later on. Okay. All right, and this should be done perfectly. And from here, we're going to create a group to organize these two data. So we're going to create a new section. We're going to call this stories. And we're going to bring all stories over. And we're going to create another section. We're going to call this automations. This is where we're going to use for automations later on. And we're going to have one more, which is others. And we're going to bring the all data and view over. Okay, and for automations, once again, we're going to create a new grid. We're going to call this generate story, create new view. I'm going to bring this over to automations, and this is what's going to trigger our automations later on. Okay, and over here, we're going to add a couple of filters to make sure the automation works according to what we want. The first filter condition is where article summary is not empty. Okay, this is where we need to have the article summary in first before we can go into the automation. The next one we're going to add in is the story is empty, right? This is where we can use the prompts to create a story for us over here. So this is where the automation works. And the next one we're going to have is story types is not empty, right? This is important for us to have the specific story types like comic book style to help us decide what kind of prompts we're going to be creating. And lastly, we want to have the condition for ready to be set to yes. And this is where we have checked off the article before we want to automate it. All right, and this is done for our story tab. We're going to go into the next one, which is scenes. We're going to do the same thing, create three sections, 2, 3. Call the first one scenes, call the second one automations, and the third one we're going to call it others. Okay, and we're going to create two more grids, grid 2, grid 3. The first one we're going to call it all scenes. We're going to bring it over to scenes. Then we're going to have the next one, which is for generate scenes, and we're going to bring this to automations. And the last one we're going to have is for all data and fields. So this is for us to see everything that we have. We're going to put it in others. Okay, awesome. And let's check it out for all scenes. We're just going to hide one field. All scenes, we're just going to hide the record ID. We're going to group all these by the story so we can consolidate all the scenes for each story accordingly. And so we are able to then group all of these scenes according to the story for each article. All right, and let's go into automations for generate scenes. We're going to add in a filter for this as well. The first condition is where scene is not empty. We're going to add in another condition, which is the image prompt is not empty as well. Right, we need to have the scene and the image prompt ready before we can generate the images. Last one we want to do is image list is empty. This is important so that we can then make sure to upload the images that will be consolidated in the image list later on. Okay, this is done. Perfect. Now let's go into story types one last one. Let's take a look, and we are good here. Image list is good, and here we have it. Basically, the first part of our Airtable is done. The next thing we're going to do is to create automations within Airtable, as well as creating them using Make. Okay, so we're going to go into Make first, and we're going to create a new scenario. Right, this is the first scenario out of 3 scenarios they're going to use for this automation. And we're going to call this Infinite Carousel Generator 1 out of 3. Okay, awesome. In this first scenario, we want to be able to get the latest article from RSS feed and then create an article summary and update them onto the Airtable. Okay, so the first module we're going to add in is RSS. We're going to retrieve RSS feed item, and we're going to type in our URL, which can be found over here in our RSS app. And this is the one for biotech, where you can get the latest biotech news. So I'm just going to copy this over, paste it in, and for the date, I'm just going to leave it blank, and it will take the latest news for us. Right, we're going to return the maximum number of written items as 1 for this simple example so that we don't get too many articles, but you can always change it along the way. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to run once and let you see what happens. You can see over here it's taken the latest article, as you can see over here. So that's perfect. And now we're going to just go through a couple more steps to create an article summary for our Airtable. The next thing we're going to do is to add in the next module, which is HTTP get a file. And we're just going to click URL from the RSS app. Okay, and done. And we're going to add in the next one, which is a text parser. So you can convert the HTML into text for GPT to analyze later on. So we're going to click HTML to text. And we're going to select the data from the HTTP module and click OK. Awesome. We're going to add in our GPT article summarizer. So I'm going to search for create a completion, right? And I'm going to choose the model as GPT-4o. Add a message. The role is user. And the message content, I'm going to copy over a prompt that I've created. Once again, you can get those in the resources in my link in description. Okay, so you can see over here, I want it to review the article from the text parser and create a 200-word summary for me. I give it an example format for it to reference as well. Right, so this is exactly what I want to have later on in my Airtable. Right, all these are detailed information that is enough for the Airtable to create the scenes for our story carousel later on. Okay, and so once this is done, max token we're going to put as 0 for the default value, and we're going to click OK and done. We're going to change the name of this to article summarizer. Awesome. Click save. And just one last one, we're going to add in Airtable module. We're going to click Airtable and we're going to click create a record. So we're going to create a new record for the article. We're going to search for our base, which is the infinite carousel generator one that we have created. So refresh this. Make sure I've given access through Airtable. We're going to search and click into that. And the table will choose stories. And we just want to update the article summary. So over here, we're just going to add in the results and we're going to click OK, and that's all we need. We're going to click save and we're going to run once and see what happens. So let's go. All right, see it's run perfectly. So let's go back to Airtable and you can see the article summary. There is a new story created over here. And the article summary is exactly in the format that we want, with all the information required for us to later create our images and our carousel post. Awesome. That's all for the very first scenario. Very easy, very quick. And if you want to generate new articles and new posts, you can just automate this and get the latest article perhaps every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, according to your automation. Okay, we're going to save this and we're going to move on to the next step. We're going to go into our Airtable first. And this time we can choose to add in the story types that we want. Right, so for example, we want this article summary to be in comic news style. We're going to click comic news. Okay, and let's say we want to automate this specific article. We can click ready. And you can see from here, in automations, it will pop up. And this is where the automation will work. But of course, what we got to do is to be able to create the automations right now. Okay, so we're going to go into make once again, and we're going to create our second scenario, which is the bulk of all the content generation. So from here, we're going to create a new scenario. I'm going to call this the infinite carousel generator 2 out of 3. The first thing I want to do is to create a webhook for us to connect to Airtable. So we're going to add in a module. We're going to search Airtable. We're going to click watch responses and we're going to add in a hook. And we can call this webhook infinite carousel generator. Save. And we're going to copy this address for our automation later on and click OK. Done. And we're going to create a router. Okay, one router here. Great. Here we go. We're going to click save first and we're going to go back and create our automation for generating the stories first. We're coming back to Airtable. We're going to click into automations. We're going to add a trigger when record enters view. Okay, and we're going to call this automation generate stories. Okay, and from here, we're going to select the table, which is stories. The view would be generate stories. Okay, and we're going to add an advanced logic or action. We're going to click run script. I'm going to add in a code over here. Once again, you can copy this code over here that I have created. And what I'm going to do is to copy the webhook address over here. I'm going to update the make link over here. Right, this allows us to fetch the information from our make automation. And I'm going to have the record ID over here. And for this, we're going to call this generate story. Okay, and this is the filter that we'll be using later on for the automation. We're going to make sure to add a input variable. We're going to call this record ID. Make sure that the format is accurate. You can see over here record ID capital I and small d. Right, and the value we're going to click plus and we're going to click Airtable record ID and we're going to click done, finish editing. Awesome. Okay, later we're going to run this script and we're going to be able to see the automation works. And now let's go back to our make automation. So over here, let's create another router again. Okay, and split this up. Before we continue, we're going to run this automation once first so that we can get the data over. So what you're going to do is you're going to click test action, okay? And we're going to go back to this scenario. And we're going to click run once use existing data. And over here you can see it's gotten us the record ID as well as the action, which is generate story. Awesome. So from here, we're going to create a new module, Airtable get a record. And we're going to choose our base, which is the infinite carousel generator 1. And we can click stories, and the record ID will be the record ID. Awesome. And from here, let's create a filter for generate stories. So we can type generate story. The condition is the action contains case insensitive generate story, and click OK. So now this first part of our automation will only be triggered with the generate story action. Perfect. Okay, and now continuing the automation, we're going to create our story writer to update the stories. So we're going to click OpenAI. We're going to create a completion once again, and we're going to choose GPT-4o, max token 0, add a message, user, and we're going to add in our prompt. We're going to add in a prompt which is very simple, which is the article summary, and below we're going to add in the story prompt text. Okay, how does this work? Let's go back to Airtable and take a look. Click OK. Let's go back to Airtable, click data. And so the article summary, right? What we're going to do in the prompt is essentially we feed it the article summary, which is this whole data about the article that we have created previously. And then from there, we do have the story prompt text that we've created, right? So after giving it the article, we're telling GPT to read the article above, right? We give it task on creating a 10 words headline that clearly summarizes the core messages of the article, intro, importance, key facts, and call to action. We also give it specific actions like keeping the total summary to a maximum of 200 words. And we give an example, right, such as this: headline, intro, importance, and key facts. Essentially, what this is going to do is to split the article summary even further for us to create our prompts for our images and scenes for our carousel post. And all these will be updated in the story segment later on. Okay, and let's go back to make. I'm going to change this and rename this to story writer. Okay, and we're done. I'm going to add another Airtable module, and it's going to be update record. And for this, we're going to click into the base once again. The table will be stories. The record ID will be the record ID once again from the first one. Okay, I'm just going to update the story tab. And so we're just going to add in the result from the story writer, and we are done. Click OK. Okay, what we want to do actually is to go back to the Airtable. Let's change this story ID to a numbered field. So you're going to click auto number and click save, confirm change, and in this case we do get it in the number field that we want, so we don't have to update the story ID all the time, right? So this is story ID 1 for this specific article. Okay, now let's try out our automation, right? We're going to click run once. Okay, and let's go back to Airtable, click into automations, and let's test out the automation over here, test action, and let's see what happens. Okay, perfect. Let's go back to Airtable. You can take a look over here. It does have the story that's been created, the headline, the intro, the importance, the key facts, and the call to action, right, in the format that we want. So this is perfect for us to then move on. And you can see once it's updated, it's no longer in the automation section, right, which means that this has been done, and it will go into our next part, which is the automations for the scenes. Okay, now let's go back to make once again, and let's create our second automation. Once again, we're going to click get a record, and we're going to add in the base, which is the infinite carousel generator 1. The table will be stories, the record ID. Okay, and we're going to go move into the next one. This time we're going to add in our scenes creator. So OpenAI, create a completion, max token 0, model GPT-4o, add message, user. And for the prompt, we're going to use the one that we have created in our Airtable once again. We're going to add in the scene prompt, and below we're going to add in the story that we have created earlier on. Okay, and so once again, just take a look. How does this work? Right, if you go to all data and field, you can click here. The scene prompt essentially gives it a specific set of tasks, right, telling us how to create the prompts. And below we write the story is, and that's where we add in the story for the automation. So you can take a look here. We add in a story at the end of it. Okay, once this is done, we're gonna change this name to Scenes Creator. Awesome. And very quickly, let's just finish up this process. We're gonna add in another module. This time we're gonna add in a JSON, and we're gonna type in the JSON string, which would be the result from the scene creator, and click OK. Okay, and before we continue, make sure to test this action once again. So we're gonna click test action, and come back to make, and click run once, run anyway. And here we go. It should have updated the scenes. You can see over here, it's created pairs. 6 different pairs with the original as well as the image prompts, so that's great. Okay, and one thing to note that I've added into the prompt as well is to ask it to return only the JSON output without the text JSON at the start, because sometimes there is the error, and if it doesn't return the full JSON output, you'll not be able to pass it later on. Now moving forward, we're just going to add in a couple more modules. So we can add in the iterator. We're going to speed up our pairs to be updated onto Airtable. So we're going to click into pairs and click OK, done. And lastly, update our Airtable. We're going to create a record. All right, this time around, we're going to choose the base, which is the same, but we're going to choose the table as scenes this time. And we're going to update our scenes table. We're going to update scene, which is the original text that's been created from our iterator, as well as the image prompt, which will be the AI image prompts over here. Okay, and we're going to add in the name as well, which is actually the story ID, which we can get from here in the Airtable story ID. Okay, and that's all we need. We're going to click OK, done. Come back to Airtable, click data. Let's change this to story ID. Okay, and now we're going to go back to make once again, click save, and run the automation once again to get it all updated to Airtable. We need to go back to our automations over here and click test action once again. All right, let's see what happens. Okay, let's go back to Airtable. We can see it's updated the scenes as well as the story ID. So we want to change something over here. We want to make sure that this actually number counts instead of the story ID. So let's make a change. We're going to change this to auto number, confirm change. Okay, and what we're going to do is we want to actually update the story ID over here instead of the fields over here. So what we're going to do is to go back to make once again, remove this. Okay, and we're going to add item under story. And we're going to change the record ID to record ID over here under the story. And we're going to click OK. And this time we're going to run once again, go into our Airtable, click into automations, and we're going to run it once, test action, and let's see what happens. Okay, now it should be updated perfectly. You can see over here, story is now 1, which is the first story that we have. And over here we have the counts. I've deleted the previous 6, so now the count starts from 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Perfect. And here we have our scenes text. Awesome. And we do have the image prompt as well that we can use later on. And the first part of our automation is completed. The next thing we need to do is to generate the images and then change them into carousel posts. Right, so let's click save and let's go on to the second part of our automation, generating the scenes. Now let's get a new filter over here. We're going to call this generate scenes. And for the condition, we're going to click action and we're going to type in generate scenes. This is what we're going to use for our filter later on. And we're going to click contain case insensitive and click OK. Awesome. Let's go back to Airtable, automations. This time let's duplicate this. I'm going to change this to generate scenes. Click into the run script and we're going to edit the code. Right, we're going to change the action over here to just generate scenes, creating a new filter for us. And we're going to click finish editing and we are done. Awesome. Okay, and now let's go back to make. We're going to add in the automation over here. So the first thing we're going to add is get a record once again, Airtable, get a record. And the base once again is the infinite carousel generator one. And the table will be scenes, the record ID, record ID. Okay, moving on to the next, we're just going to add in ChatGPT, DALL-E to create the image for us using the prompts. So we're going to click OpenAI and we're going to search for generate an image using DALL-E, the model DALL-E 3. And we're going to add in the prompt, which is the image prompt over here. And done. Okay, we're going to call this image generator. And now let's go into Airtable again. Create a record. Select our base. Table will be the image list this time. Okay, the job ID will be the response image name. We're going to add item under scenes. Record ID 1 will be the record ID over here. And we're going to add an item under image. The file URL will be under data. URL. File name, you can just leave it empty and click OK. Done. Let's click save. Let's go back to the automation once again, and this time let's run this script. Test action. Run test. Okay, let's go back to automation. One thing we need to change is we're going to change this to scenes and we change the view to generate scenes. Okay, we're going to click run a script once again. I'm going to test action, run test. I'm just going to select the very first scene that we have over here and let's test out the action. So go back to make, run once, make sure to test your action once again, and let's see it run. Okay, perfect. Let's go back to Airtable, go into data, do this later, go into image list. You can see it's created the image for us. So beautiful, this is the first image for our very first carousel post. Awesome. As you can see, it's updated over here. And you can see in generated scenes for our automation, story ID 7 has been removed. So we can do this for the rest of them. And we will have all the scenes generated over here later on. Perfect. And let's come back to make. And this is the completion of our automation. So let's click save. And we're done with part 2 out of 3. Now, if you want to generate all the images, all we got to do is to go back to our make automation. Let's click automations, and we can turn on both of them, and this will automatically create all of the scenes back to back once it receives the data later on. Right, so let's say I turn on this for generate scenes. I just gotta go back to data for generate scenes, and I'm gonna go back to make automations, and I'm gonna turn this on as well. Delete all data, delete, and turn this on. Okay, once these are both on, I'm gonna go back to data once again, and if I want to create the automation for all of them, I'm just gonna add in a additional filter over here, a random one, just remove them, so you can put story ID equals to 111. Okay, and back to this, I'm gonna turn this off. Okay, once I turn this off, apply, you can see it's all been created over here, and the automation should run accordingly right now. Okay, we go back to automations, right? To automate this, let's go back to this, and let's click test action once again to run the automation. And once this is done, it should help us automatically generate all of them. You can see it's all been removed from the scenes automation table, and you can see over here the image list has been created for all of them. And now we've automated everything, right? We have created the story prompt, the scene prompt, we've created all the different scenes, right? Under all scenes, the text, the images, and everything that we need. Okay, so now that we have the images, the scenes, what we want to do next is to create our carousel post. We're gonna create the next part of our automation, which is creating carousel posts with Placid. So let's go back to make once again, click save, and let's click back, and we're gonna go back to scenarios. I'm gonna create our latest scenario, which is the infinite carousel generator 3 out of 3. All right, and this is for us to create our carousel post from here on out. Okay, so I'm gonna use Placid as the main carousel post generator. All you gotta do is go to placid.app and create an account, and easily you can create different templates for your automation, right? So this is very effective and a substitute towards Canva that we can also use to create carousel posts, right? So for example, you can create a template over here by clicking create template, and I've created one right over here like this. So I've put in the text that I want, the information that I want, as well as the images over here. So this is an example that I found inspired by Illuna AI. As you can see over here, this is their carousel post. They like to have it in this specific format. And so I've used something like that to help us create interesting carousel posts that actually gets a lot of engagement and views for our news, right? And so once you have created the template, very easily you can just add in your text, add in your images, add in your layers. I'm gonna give these layers names so it's easy for us to find out later on. So I'm gonna call this the image layer. I'm going to call this second one, which is the scenes layer, for us to put in the scenes text. And the last one, we don't have to change much, so let's just leave it as it is, as this will be standardized throughout all our posts. Okay, now let's go back to make. We're going to create a new module. We're going to call this Airtable watch records, and we're going to choose our base, once again the same one, infinite carousel generator one. The table will be scenes this time. Okay, and the trigger field will be last modified. The label field will be status, and we're gonna click OK, and we're gonna click from now on. Right, so what we're gonna do from here is that we're gonna go into scenes, and this status field will be where we're gonna approve it. And once we approve this, we will have them generated into our carousel post. Okay, moving back to Airtable, let's create the next module, which is Placid. Search for it, and we're gonna click create image. And we're going to search for our template, which is template 7004. And over here, there is the layers that we want to update, right? So new picture layer, right? We want to have it as our image. We're going to click into image, and we're going to click into URL. Okay, we're going to have the new text layer as the scene over here. Okay, and we are done. Click OK. Awesome. Okay, and from here, we want to get a file. So we're going to download them and finally consolidate them into our Google Drive so that we can post it onto our social media platforms. So we're going to click HTTP, get a file, click URL, and we're going to have the image URL from Placid. Click OK. And lastly, we're going to add in a Google Drive module. And we're going to click upload a file. Let's search from the list. And I have a folder, and you can add it to your folder. So I'm going to select my folder under comic news, under comic carousel, and that's it. Done. Okay. Click save. Save anyway. Okay, and from here, let's just click save once. And we're done with final automation. We're going to go back to the Airtable, and this time let's approve all of them so that we can get them to work for us. Right? We're going to click approved, 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 approved. Finally, the last one, approved. All right. Let's go back to make. Okay, and before you run the automation, we're going to add in one last thing, which is the new file name. It's going to be a story ID, which is scenes ID, so that we can actually have the file's numbered accordingly. Okay, so we're going to type this in, click OK, done. So make sure to update this into scene ID. Okay, and we're done. Okay, and let's run the automation and see what happens. Click run once. And here we go. Placid's working. It's generating our images for us. Okay, as you can see, it's updating our Google Drive now, so it's pretty cool. Let's wait a while more and see what we can get. Okay, and you can see we are done. We have 6 new images created for us. So let's go back to Drive. You can see over here, 6 carousel posts. And what we have done so far is that we have managed to get the latest article in our niche from RSS feed into carousel posts in the style that we like and save them into our Google Drive. So let's take a look. You can see over here, very nice, 6 different carousel posts to talk about the latest biotech news. And this is just one style that can be created. We can create them in many different styles, and the images can even be crazier if we connect them to other models such as Flux or Midjourney. Alright, I hope you found this tutorial useful and you're on your way to generate unlimited carousel posts for your own specific business and niche. If you like videos like these and like to learn more about AI automations, do give it a like and subscribe, and check out my other automation tutorials as well on this channel. Till then, I really appreciate you and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.